We cannot succeed if half of us are held back, according to Malala Yousafzai. Women in developing countries are not able to succeed because of gender roles and women's rights issues that have been assigned to women in these countries for hundreds of years. Three of the things we're going to talk about today are girls in third world countries do not have acceptable access to education. They do not have acceptable access to health care, and what it is exactly that we can do in order to help women and girls. So let's discuss why it is so detrimental that girls are not provided the same education as boys in developing countries. Many economies lose more than $1 billion a year by not sending their girls to school, and this is according to the Global Partnership for Education. When girls are not educated to the same level as boys, their economy suffers greatly. And the reason that girls are not given the same access to education as boys is that boys are often seen as the ones who need to have education in order to provide for their families and develop a more solid skill set. Some economies and countries actually restrict women's rights and think that an educated woman is going to be very bad for them, which simply is not true. An educated female population actually increases a country's productivity and fuels economic growth. More educated women tend to be healthier, they work and earn more income, they have fewer children, resulting in less poverty, and they provide better health care and education to their children. Girls' education literally saves millions of lives, and this is from the GPE as well. In many countries, only about a third of women and girls are given access to education, and they need to. If we don't provide women with the education that they deserve, this cyclical and never-ending cycle of oppression for women is always going to continue into perpetuity, and we simply cannot, as humans and as global citizens, we can't allow it. Closing the gender gap in education is going to benefit all economies, not just women and girls. Empowering women and girls is really going to decrease domestic violence. It's going to help women have better access to health care, and we can start improving the status of developing countries when girls are given more opportunities to succeed. So we've talked about gender gaps in education, so let's consider another major issue, which is healthcare in developing countries. First, I want to start off with something that may be a little bit controversial, but it's something that's certainly worth noting, and you don't have to agree with me politically on this, but in 2012, there were approximately 63.2 million unintended pregnancies globally. Access to acceptable healthcare in these countries is extremely limited, so many women are trying to get abortions for these unintended pregnancies that are just medically unsafe, and it results in a lot of illness, it results in death, it results in HIV infections, hepatitis infections, and a numerous amount of other issues. Some women are unable to have children after the fact when they are actually more economically stable because of these unsafe abortions. And one of the reasons that this is important is because women who are having these abortions didn't have access to family planning. They probably did not have education that they could receive a safe procedure. And even if they could receive that safe procedure, it was probably very difficult and expensive for them to have that procedure done. And this is not the only issue that women are facing with healthcare. Even when women are trying to take their children to the doctor or make an appointment for themselves if they're not feeling well. They have to ask their husbands or fathers for permission to do so, and oftentimes their fathers are the ones who are paying for these services, and so they will decide that it's not even worth it. Women can't make their own decisions about healthcare, even in emergency situations where nobody's around. So the nearest man who witnessed the emergency or the male doctor will decide the fate of a woman because she is not her own agent for discussing her own medical choices. And this is a problem, again, because women don't even realize in these countries sometimes that they have the right to good health care. It's an education issue as well. So when women are not provided access to health care, they're becoming ill, they're having risky abortions, they're having more children that they can't afford, they're unable to provide for their families, or they become very ill. So women's rights and access to health care is truly not just a singular issue, but it's multifaceted and cyclical, and if we can't do something to fix it, the problem will just continue. So we've talked about the issues surrounding women's health care, so let's consider what we can do about it. According to globalissues.org, there's a myriad of women's rights issues, and we've barely scratched the surface in making changes. Some economies and countries have started to challenge gender norms and empower women. Something that we can do simply from being at home is to demand that countries eliminate discrimination for girls in education. And India has already made it illegal to discriminate against women and girls in any setting. And this is not, this is a very broad step, but it's a step nonetheless. Another thing we can do is to start raising our boys to become men who respect women and their rights, and to continue to fight for their equality in the classroom, in healthcare, and basically in any setting. One of the main reasons that women need such improved access to healthcare is that female mortality is still exponentially higher than male mortality. That's because males are often given preference. We need to be able to reverse that norm. We need to discuss with our country's leaders why, these policies are unacceptable, because 1/2 of the population cannot be failing so detrimentally. We need to teach women their basic human rights. A lot of women are ignorant of what they deserve as people because they're simply not taught that. They're taught that they're second-class citizens, and they simply accept it because we're not educating them properly. Something that many people are trying to do, and many organizations are trying to do, is to reduce mortality rates in maternity wards. So making women's health is a major outlook for improvement in the developing world. So let's, in conclusion, women and girls in third world and developing countries deserve to be empowered by educating and empowering them. Women need more stability in health care, and those issues need to be improved. Girls need to be educated to the same level as boys in order for developing nations' economies to flourish. Women need better access to a myriad of healthcare solutions, not only to safe medical procedures and abortions, but to general care. They need to know that health care is a basic human right, and we need to keep fighting for women's rights in these developing nations. As Malala said, we cannot succeed if half of us are held back. And I think that that's really powerful once again, and thank you.